Peter, you could probably count on one hand how many companies, startups are out there in the country right now that are focused on national security in some form or fashion and that have reached so-called unicorn status, meaning $1 billion valuation or greater. I believe you've funded all or nearly all of those companies. How do you think about this?
Well, by my count, the number is 2. If we look at companies started since the end of the Cold War, last 30 years, 1989 to 2019, they're SpaceX and Palantir. I was co-founder of Palantir, and I was the first outside investor in SpaceX. So I've been heavily involved in both of those. And I think there's always sort of like a glass half full, glass half empty version. The glass half full version is that I think innovation will get driven by a lot of innovation gets driven by smaller companies that get started and that scale over time. And so this is absolutely critical. When not that many people are doing it, if you're one of the few who does it, there's a lot of opportunity. And then at the same time, we have to acknowledge that in the aftermath of the Cold War, there were sort of ways in which the military contracted into this sort of posture where all the funding went to the major primes, and it became much harder for this sort of small to mid-sized entrepreneurial system to build. And I think as a venture capitalist, you don't want to invest in tiny consulting companies that always stay tiny, and where there's some idiosyncratic use, and it sort of goes into a cul-de-sac that's a broom closet in the Pentagon or something like this. You want to do things that scale, that get bigger over time, and this has sort of been, and I think there's definitely a lot of there are a number of attempts been made in recent years in the U.S. military to try to correct for this sort of procurement process, but I still think we have a ways to go.
Which begs the question, I think, because you just mentioned Palantir and SpaceX. Certainly, SpaceX is changing the way that rockets are flown. Has it created, or have these companies created a template for other startups to follow within the space?
Well, there's certainly proof that it can be done. It in both cases took a wickedly long time, probably close to a decade, to start getting significant contracts from the U.S. military, and in some ways they were not conventionally venture fundable. I personally funded Palantir. Elon personally funded SpaceX. We got outside capital maybe six years in to both businesses. And so if you have something where you have a 6-year gap and it can only get funded by someone who's putting in tens of millions of dollars as a sort of slightly quixotic project, that's a tricky template to repeat. So I think there definitely are lessons one can learn from Palantir and SpaceX. We made a lot of mistakes. There may be ways to sort of develop these things more quickly, to procure things somewhat faster. But if you have a decade-long process, that's we're supposed to have long time horizons, but the time horizons are not that long.
The one thing I will add that I think is a tremendous testament to both those companies and Anduril and others that are fast growing and now have momentum is the people that are attracted to high growth, really big historic narratives. And so if you think about the flow of talent, the flow of human capital, the flow of financial capital, they don't want to go into these small hot dog stands or these $30 million businesses. But when you see people voting with their feet, and I in no way mean to offend any of the primes who do incredible work, but many of the top engineers are saying, I don't want to go to, for example, Lockheed, which is one of my investors. They want to go to some of these high growth early companies where they see the opportunity to create a fortune in the future as much more attractive.